Hey everyone. If you have ever sustained an injury and physical therapy was recommended for you, but dealing with the insurance headache and actually finding the time to go to said PT was nearly impossible, added stress, and delayed your recovery by months, you absolutely need to listen to this episode. I have been in that situation multiple times. And as a working mom, trying to get to 1 hour PT sessions twice a week that was 30 minutes away from me, because that's what my insurance covered at the time, was not feasible at all. So then I was in pain. I missed out on a lot of the activities I enjoyed for much longer than anticipated. We are so fortunate to have other options available to us these days. And I so wish this was available to me a few years back as a mom and busy professional. So I'm here to tell you about it. It's a good thing too, because as we get older, the hormonal changes can negatively affect our musculoskeletal system, increasing our risk for injuries. So in case this does happen, let's have a realistic plan in place. Today, I am so excited to be talking with Dr. Kelly Davis. She is a leading physical therapist, athletic trainer, and biomechanics expert specializing in sports medicine and orthopedic recovery. With over a decade of experience, she has helped professional athletes, celebrities, and high-level executives recover efficiently and get back to peak performance. As a former primary healthcare provider for the Women's Tennis Association, Kelly traveled the world supporting top tier athletes, which is so cool. And now she brings that same elite level care to clients wherever they are. Through OrthoCare Concierge, Kelly offers personalized, remote orthopedic coaching for people who don't have time for traditional physical rehab. These days, who does? Whether you're recovering from surgery, managing an injury, or looking to optimize movement and performance, she provides expert-driven solutions tailored to your lifestyle without the hassle of clinic visits or insurance headaches. So tune in to learn how you can decrease your risk of injury and how to navigate it if it does happen. Welcome to the Lifestyle PA podcast, where we talk about all things women's health and lifestyle to help you become the healthiest and happiest version of yourself. Okay, awesome. All right. So Kelly, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited to talk to you about your background and what you do for a living. It is so needed for women. So can you tell us, especially in your professional experience, what have you seen as far as like common injuries for women, especially in their 30s, 40s, and 50s?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation. It is a huge change that we see for women in their 30s and above, right? In that perimenopause and menopause. And I don't think women realize how much their hormones really do affect your body as a whole. And as somebody who has worked with high level performing athletes in the past, even just the changes from going from, puberty into, right, that's a big jump. And then of course, perimenopause and menopause is another huge jump. It goes up significantly. And there's also that old adage where it's like, I'm old and everything hurts now. It's true. And it's different for every person. And so much of it is related to so many different processes. But I think the biggest thing that I see with women increasing their injury rates later, like in their mid 30s, in their early 40s, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we start losing muscle mass. Like we peak at around 28 to 32, and then we start declining, right? So there is in a muscle, the actual contraction unit in a muscle is called a sarcomere. And the studies actually show that as you hit that kind of perimenopause, mid 30s, you start losing literal contractile elements at a rate of like 5% per decade, which is crazy, right? So if we don't have the physical ability to contract the muscle, we start losing strength, we start losing coordination. You might feel clumsier, you're going to get more joint injuries, more like falls, strains. especially as we're trying to stay active, right? Does that kind of answer the question?
That's perfect. No, thank you. I find that so fascinating, right? Because similar to hormones, like you were talking about the sarcomere within the muscle, and it's all of those internal inevitable changes that happen. Like we can't see it happen, but there's also those lifestyle changes on top of it. So, like to your point, when especially for working women who have kids, like the ability for them to fit in their normal workout routine and strength training. I feel like because life gets busy, that goes downhill. And so does the internal process of our actual like muscle regeneration and production. So it's fascinating, honestly. And I find that it doesn't even apply to just what we call like the weekend warriors, right? Like where Monday through Friday, we're just grinding and getting the kids to activities and things like that. And then we go super hard on the
On the
weekends.
weekends because it's our
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, but I find it's even happening to those women who stay active and even like in the athletic capacity, um, that they're still at that increased risk for injury just because of all of those changes that are happening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. It's, for most women, this is their prime age that they have young children and we work now and work is busy. And you're like, great, I'm getting the kids ready for school. I'm going to work. When do I have time to eat lunch? When do I have time to fit in exercise? And then there's the misconceptions of like, well, I just need to lose weight, so I'm going to run. Right. And so they're like, that takes too much time. And I was like, that's not, we're losing sarcomeres. How do we add them back in? Right. It's strength training, which is a whole different, I'm sure we'll get to that topic as well. But, I'd love to learn from you too, because I know a little bit, but you're really the expert in it, in how the lower levels of estrogen as we hit perimenopause, like what do you see in that? Because I know it can do things like, bone density is the biggest one that comes to mind, right? It's a huge risk for women. And then, it can lead to stress fractures and things like that from my realm. But I'd love to hear from you about what you see.
Yes, I love this question because I feel like there's still not a lot of awareness around it. And we know now that estrogen is super beneficial and protective, but I feel like a lot of women don't realize just in how many ways it is. So specifically for the area focusing on strength, when our estrogen, and again, it's tough, right? Because it's not this steady decline of estrogen and then it drops off. Like it is a roller coaster for a decade. So it fluctuates. And when it's on that decline,
Mhm.
the issue with muscle is that our ability to generate muscle stem cells or produce muscles, that capacity decreases by about 30%, which is
Wow.
so significant for women, right? Because especially compared to men, we already have difficulty gaining muscle. And then we have that estrogen decrease and the ability to generate the stem cells decrease. So that's
To
one of the reasons
actually
why heavy,
yeah.
yeah. And that's one of the reasons why heavy lifting is so critical because we almost need to stimulate more by like an extra 30% to make up for the estrogen loss. So that's probably why we still see it, even in women who are staying active, but they reach that phase over 35. And it's like, what the heck? I'm not changing a lot, but why is my injury rate going up? Or why am I spraining my
I'm
ankle more?
doing the same things I've always done. Right. Now, when you say it's like a roller coaster, obviously it's a decline. So I know this is podcast. So is it like a roller coaster, but it's like bumps and waves that go kind of down?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Got
So
it.
it's the best way to describe it is it fluctuates because also it looks wildly different for each woman. So yes, it's overall starting to decrease, but again, it's one of the reasons why like we can't test those levels. We can,
Because
and it
it's
can
so
provide, yeah, it can provide some utility for when we get into like HRT and see if we're responding and things like that. But ultimately to diagnose like the 5 to 10 years you're in perimenopause, like I could test your levels today and I'd be like, what most physicians and providers are doing are saying like, oh, it's normal. You're fine. You're not in perimenopause. And really, if I had tested you next week, that might tell a wildly different story because they might be really low. So that's why it's only one tool that we use, but it's not diagnostic to say,
right.
you're in it, here's what's going on. It's more symptom
Yeah,
based.
that makes so much sense. And yeah, I knew that hormones were super variable, but that's such a great way to explain it.
Yeah.
What is testosterone doing in this phase? Because testosterone, is an easier hormone for me in the orthopedic world to get a
Yeah.
grasp on.
Yep, and that's what I was gonna tell you too, is I would love to hear, like, more about your thoughts on the role of testosterone because it is critical for women. Like, I feel like a lot of us, we think testosterone and we associate it with males, muscle gain, hair growth, deeper voice, right? And those can certainly be side effects if it's replaced and it gets to a much higher level, which is definitely why you wanna see a professional. But
Right.
it's interesting, Kelly, because a lot of my clients who were athletes, like all through college, it's
Mhm.
those women that when they hit perimenopause and menopause, they notice a significant difference in their muscle loss, their energy, and things like that. And once you trial a replacement of like a low dose testosterone, it is life changing for them because it really does help with muscle
Um,
development. Mhm.
okay, so
Yeah.
both estrogen and testosterone are
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of going down. See, I
Exactly.
didn't know that piece of it, and that's really fascinating because I see the trends in orthopedics, but yeah, okay.
Yeah. So tell me in orthopedics, because again, your background is amazing. So in orthopedics, have you seen its use specifically in women, like the benefits and the role of it?
I don't have anyone, and that's why I love, our relationship. I think it could be a game changer as far as the educational piece for me
Yeah.
to tell my clients of like, hey, what I was saying earlier, these are high level athletes. I was working with pro women's tennis and, they hit a point and they're like, well, I did this so elitely. And I wonder if the connection is less they're aging or they beat their bodies up as youth, but like, hey, we're in perimenopause now. Your testosterone is down and your ability and your estrogen, right? And your estrogen affects your connective tissues. So that now they're getting all the overuse stuff. They're getting the tennis elbows and the plantar fasciitis and all of those cool things. So that was such a like light bulb moment for me for women in that age range who now are struggling with gaining weight and they can't condition like they used to. Big,
Yep.
big light bulb moment. Yeah. Because
Yes.
again, the way I've always understood the very basics of those hormones are what you were saying about testosterone. That's what bulks men up, and that's what gives you the muscle. And yeah, these women probably have higher levels of testosterone that have just dropped
1,000%. And the relationship that you mentioned between estrogen and the connective tissue absolutely plays such a
down.
significant role. And, so I just encourage women, because again, hormone replacement therapy, it's just a tool. Like you'll still have to establish really good lifestyle therapies and things like that. And there are things you can do through nutrition and activity to support like the muscle loss that we see and these changes in the tendons and the ligaments, especially like physical therapy if needed too. So it's it all closely kind of works together, right? Like it's never just address this part and oh you're fixed and you can carry on. It's always like a
Oh,
multifaceted approach. Yeah.
and I could not agree more, even in my expertise, right? Like, it's my biggest pet peeve when people are like, well, I have knee pain. Why are you looking at my low back? And it's like, there is such a chain of events that happens. You have to holistically treat the person. And we talk about things like nutrition and anti inflammatory diets and things like that. So, having the ability to talk to you or send them to you and say, hey, let's get this piece of the puzzle in and see how that really fits into how you got injured in the first place. Huge.
Yes. And
Yeah.
absolutely the education piece, right? And I definitely want to highlight more of what you do because I feel like you can devote more time to clients. And as women, we love to know the why and understand. So, just like that client you were talking about with the knee pain, well, why are you looking at my back? And being able to educate them on
Yes.
not only the changes going on in their body, but the biomechanics and the relationship
Yeah.
in the conventional healthcare system, you really don't get that time or energy or level of education and personalization, right? So,
Mhm.
I mean, I will never forget when I met you. I'm like, where were you 2 years ago? And there are so many women struggling with this, right? Because
Yeah,
especially like, I don't care if you're a mom or just a working woman, we all have different obligations, right? But
right.
this was like 2 to 3 years ago, I think I was telling you. So for our listeners, I was training for one of my Spartan races, and I definitely had like an overuse injury in my hip. And the headache of trying to fit in going to a physical therapist, right? Because then you have, oh, I have to go through my insurance company, and oh, only this practice will cover it. So then I have to drive 20 to 30 minutes, go spend at least an hour there, 20 to 30 minutes home. So you're talking minimum like a 2 to 3 hour a day, say 1 to 2 times a week for how many sessions, depending on your injury or your concern. And it's like, as a woman, trying to fit that in your schedule adds so much stress, and it's kind of near impossible that unfortunately it just comes to like, okay, I just have to live with this. And now I have to stop training. I
Mhm.
don't know what to do, and it's just going to get worse instead of being able to address it on the earlier side and get back to doing what you love sooner. So do you mind actually taking a couple minutes and describing like exactly what you do? Because I feel like so many women would benefit
Yes,
from this.
I would love to, and I agree. I'll give you a brief background of why I started this, and it's very similar to what you just explained. Like I was in the corporate PT world, and yes, it's such a time commitment for busy people to come 2 to 3 times a week. But the other piece that I want to highlight is the places that do take your insurance. One, you've probably already got a $50 to $85 copay. So spending that, or your deductible's not met and you've got a $5,000 deductible. So all of that kicks in first. So that's kind of crazy, number one. Number two, the way reimbursement works for physical therapy with insurance, it basically just goes down and down and down every year. It's terrible. It's awful. But in order for them to like keep the lights on, they have to see 2 to 3 people at a time. And I hit a ball. I was like, this is not how I want to treat. This is not how I'm not giving quality care. And these are people that like, for the first time, because I did my absolute best, and people are like, oh, you actually touched me. Like no other doctor has even put a hand on me to figure out what is going on. So then I transitioned to my own practice, which was a game changer, and having that one on one. But again, it's still the time commitment, or people are busy. They travel for work, they do whatever. I was like, well, we're not being consistent even with this. So I started the virtual platform, and it has been a game changer for everyone, right? It fits into your lifestyle, it fits into your time. I try to make it so that your routine is only 15 minutes a day of exercises because one, that's all you need. Like getting an hour worth of HB, that's all we have time for, right? And I think it is important to note that most people are like, yeah, this will just go away, or I don't have time to do that. So I'm just going to ignore it, and it's just going to go away. So the way my program works is we do a full assessment of everything. We talked about that holistic approach. We're going through your entire medical history. We're going through any changes. We're looking at all of your biomechanics. We're looking at how you're compensating, and we fix it. And we tailor it specifically to you so that you know exactly what's going on with your body, right? There's a massive educational piece that you spoke to earlier. And I always believe that knowledge is power. The more you know about your body and what's going on in your body, the more you have the brain space to process it. And that's a lot of the feedback I get from my patients too. They're like, oh, I had no idea that I had to intentionally think of that. And it's a game changer. So that was the whole goal of my program, is how do I make I get it. We're busy all day long, and you have kids and you don't have time. You really don't have time. Even if you don't have kids, right? So thank you for asking about what I do, and what I really want to be able to bring to people.
Oh my God, there is such a huge need for this, such a huge need and the fact that you're like 15 minutes a day, done. Because uh, if you tell a woman like, yeah, these exercises are going to need like an hour a day. No, your approach is so targeted that it's so efficient and effective. You're like 15 minutes, done, like 15
Oh, I
minutes a day.
wouldn't do an hour a day. Like,
Like,
I don't have time for that, right? Between everything else in my life. So I'm like, what is reasonable, right?
yeah, I would have killed for that years ago because I delayed my process. It ended up being this whole, probably 1 year long process. And I know for many women, it ends up being much longer than that. And they're not even able to return to their activity, which breaks my heart because, like, as women, we need that, you know?
Mine
Um,
too. I was talking to a woman yesterday and she's like, all I want to do is walk down the steps to get to the beach because that's my happy place. And she like got injured right before COVID and so shut down. She like never formally went to PT and then she's super busy. She's like, I am in my car on my lunch break so I can talk because I know I need this. And like how she's like, that's how I calm myself down. She's like, I can't get down to the beach. And I was like, you're too young. We've got to get you down to the things that like fill your cup up again, right? But if we
yes,
dug deeper, she's like, I can't even walk up the 5 stairs in my house. I'm like, girl, have you been living this like this for 4 years? But we do that as women, don't we? We're going to
yep,
put everybody else's needs first. And we're like, we'll deal with this later. So that's
exactly.
another big thing to highlight,
100%.
right?
And yeah, which is not okay. And I love just
Yeah.
seeing that too, how everyone's goals are wildly different, right? Like, we're not talking about top tier athletes, like professional women who are out there and doing this for a living. No, it's actually quite the opposite, right? Like, this is the everyday woman who, to your point, just needs to make it up the stairs comfortably. They need to
Yeah.
be able to access certain things and move around and just have their quality of life back.
Yeah.
And I
It's like
truly would
putting
agree
their
with you.
shoes on. Like
Yeah.
I have clients that are like, I physically can't, or I can't get a jacket on because my shoulder hurts so much, or sleep. Let's talk about hormones and your sleep quality, right? Cortisol, things like that. You're in pain and you're not sleeping in a quality, meaningful way. Everything else breaks down, right?
Yeah.
That's the number one reason to not put something like this off.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
so, in your opinion, so let's say we're trying to decrease our risk as women of these overuse injuries, or we want to explore running, but we fear injury. Do you have maybe just like a few kind of core exercises that are simple to do that we could integrate maybe like a few times a week just to help decrease that risk of injury?
Yes. So without going into specifics, because you know every single body is different. It's the beauty of what we do, both of us, right? The biggest tip that I give everyone is you have to keep your spine mobile. Okay. So there's definitely, even if you just, the low back loves rotation. So even if you just lay on your back and you rotate your knees side to side like windshield wipers and keep that nice rotation, that's a game changer. It's the easiest thing to do. People love it. Keeping your mid back extended. So we're in computers. So we're hunched forward, we're rounded, our neck is forward. Okay. We need to reverse that whole piece of it. So making sure you're taking just that mid back section and really extending through there, keeping your chin tucked and back. So we're not in that, forward head posture. And then to undo the rounding of the shoulder, everybody sits up tall as I'm talking about posture. Everybody's like, whoop, right? Just really squeezing your shoulder blades back and down. Those four things, if you do those consistently throughout the day, they're endurance muscles, right? So I find myself literally every hour, I'll just like rotate my palms out and squeeze my shoulder blades back and down. And it's a game changer for how your core functions, right? And everything, I will say it a million times till the cows come home, everything relates back to the core. Any injury that you're suffering always comes from something that is dysfunctional in the central portion. I was like, what was the word I was looking for? But sorry, I was going to say doing those little things can make a big difference on prevention of injuries anywhere else down the chain.
And it feels so good doing that. Like, I was smiling when you were talking about windshield wipers because it's so funny, Kelly. Like,
I have my own kind of like home workout routine, but I try to get to a Pilates class once, maybe twice a week if I'm lucky.
Yeah.
But in Pilates, like when we're doing the cool down, it's always like that rocking motion with the windshield wipers. And I remember thinking to myself every time, I'm like, this feels so incredibly good. I need to be doing it every day. But I feel like just new habits, right? Like if we're trying to integrate that every day, we need to try and associate it with something. So for me, I have that terrible issue of like rounding my shoulders. So the second you did it, when you do this, it feels so good. And like I
It's,
have one of those foam rollers that you can lay back on. But again,
yep.
unless it becomes part of your routine, it quickly just kind of falls to the wayside like everything else, right? So I
Yeah.
make a point to, I always, I struggle with getting enough water in, right? So I have myself and my clients always do like 1 to 2 glasses of water before each meal, just so you don't have to think about it. You know, at a minimum,
It's
you're going
it.
to get
Part
that.
of the routine.
So while I'm drinking that water, that's when I do like almost like shoulder rolls and just like bringing my shoulder blades back.
Yeah.
And it makes me realize how horrific my posture is and I need to be better at working at this. But B, that it really does, it feels so good. So like
Yeah.
even if you associate it with something and just trying to make it part of your daily routine, that takes what, 30 seconds to a minute. It can be powerful. So thank
It's
you
so
for sharing.
such a small piece of time. It's so funny because so I call it a posture opener. And yes, it's the shoulder blades, but there's also like an extra rotation of the shoulders that we do too, because again, in that computer posture, we're rolled in. I call it a posture opener. And I tell my clients all the time, I'm like, I give it to everyone. Okay. I'm like, I don't care if I'm treating your foot. We need it. So I tell them all the time, it's like, it was so, when I started doing these, I was sore for 2 days. I was like, this is so embarrassing. This is the easiest thing you could possibly do. I can do it in the car. I can do it literally anywhere I want to do it. And I have clients that literally, 6 months later, they're like, I still do my posture openers. I'm like, I'm so proud of you. You're like, I don't pay anymore, but I keep doing them. I one time I didn't realize that they were pickleball partners, but I was treating both of them individually. I passed them on the pickleball court in between points. They were literally like doing this at each other. And I was like, I love it so much. You can
It
incorporate it
works.
anywhere,
Yes.
anywhere.
And it's just like on my most recent podcast episode. So we were talking about just how that positive feedback loop for your brain, right? So same thing, like once you get past a certain point and your brain is receiving that like, oh, hey, this feels good and I feel better when I do it. That's
Mhm.
when you're just going to continue to do it and it
Yeah.
becomes a habit. So I love
And
that.
it's
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I talk to my clients about this too when it comes to forming habits because I think people get in their heads about like, oh, it takes 30 days to form a habit. No, it does not. It takes maybe a week. Think about drinking, right? Like if you're like, I don't want to drink anymore. That first week, you're like, after a week, you're like, oh, I forgot about it, right?
Yes.
It,
And I find that 30-day, 60-day, 90-day mark, like you can have that in the back of your minds, but that's often daunting for people. So it's like,
it,
scratch that. Let's
it
just
feels
say, I'm
unattainable.
going to do this at this time for the next 7 days. When you get to that 7-day mark, reevaluate and make a new goal. Set a different time, increase the reps, do something. But we know based on evidence, right? Like being really specific with your goals and having them be reasonable and attainable, but also having them be time based, like 7 days, not like, I'm going to lose 20 pounds in 2 months. We know that fails all the time. And we
All
know
the
the
time.
science.
Way too far out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So just 5 to 7 days at a time. Heck, even like, okay, Monday through Wednesday this week, I'm going to do this. And
Yeah.
then just take it week by week. That really
Exactly.
sets you up for success.
Mhm.
So Kelly, can you give us your opinion on, so say there's either like an overuse injury or something like a chronic thing is flaring up. Can you tell us as a physical therapist, your opinion on cold versus heat? Because I know that is constantly changing.
Constant topic. The quickest answer is the research is so incredibly mixed that there is no good answer. My advice to my patients is if it is a new injury, just happened, you rolled your ankle, whatever, ice for the first 2 to 3 days. Has to be. And that's really for the pain relief part of it and a little bit of the anti inflammatory response. But the interesting thing about ice, there's a lot of misinformation that we've learned as we've gone through it about what ice actually does. It doesn't really do much anti-inflammatory, not as much as we thought. It does not take down swelling. It prevents new swelling, but it does not take down swelling you already have. What it does really well is it slows what's called the nerve conduction velocity. So how quickly your nerve is sending those pain signals to your brain, it slows that way down. And that's where you get that like numbing effect and the overall I feel better after I iced. It's because it slowed down the transmission of those pain signals. So that's why I love ice. But the other part of it is, and if this is too in depth, you can always cut me off. But the other part of ice is people ice for like 20 minutes. You need 3 to 5 minutes. After
Perfect.
that, your body goes into like a hypothermia response and it's going to bring blood flow to the area. Okay. Because it has to, you don't want tissue death. Well, heat does the same thing. Heat just brings blood flow to the tissue. So you're doing the same thing with heat and ice. So my rule of thumb is whatever feels better for you. I
Love that.
love the feeling of ice. I think it calms my nervous system down. Some people heat, a hot tub or whatever will calm their nerves. So whichever.
That's so
Activate.
helpful. It's so
Yeah,
helpful because basically that's a situation where you can do what feels good, which is going to be different for everyone, right?
for every single person.
And in my mind too, I would think that too. It's like, well, swelling, it's your body's natural response, right? And we kind of want all of those mediators and inflammatory, we want them coming to the site to promote healing, but it's kind of like to what extent. So I'm also glad you mentioned, because so common, right? People will be like, oh, I have to ice my knee, and then they'll throw on the TV and forget it's there for 20 to 30 minutes.
Exactly,
I'm
right?
glad you
Mhm.
mentioned it's like 3 to 5 minutes, super short
Yeah.
can be impactful. So that's really
Yep.
helpful. Now, do you know what are your thoughts on so infrared saunas are like all the
All
rage
the
right now with
coverage.
so many, and they truly do have so many benefits. Um, from your point of view, with your ortho background and as a physical therapist, do you find that they are beneficial for women?
So again, research is new on it. They are trendy as heck right now. And you can buy even the little like infrared light pads that you can lay on. I don't know. Like the answer to this is going to be purely feedback from my clients that have used them and swear by them. They love them. The early research is showing some good cellular level changes and promotional healing. But I don't know if I have enough information on them specifically to make a sound clip. If it's doing no harm, we're throwing it at you, right? If you want to and it's not hurting you, by all means, let's go for it, right? But
That's
yeah,
definitely my view too. We're on the same page. And I've found the same thing, even doing my own personal research is, I haven't seen any negative effects from it. It certainly does sound promising. And we're talking for all benefits for athletes, for the everyday woman, for cardiovascular health, for immune support, everything. So totally with you. I'm like, if you have the time and you can invest in a good quality one and it maybe will help recover faster, why not? You know?
quality is the key word used there. Quality,
Yes.
quality, quality. I think, and I mean, you can correct because I'm sure you've done some research too. But I think one of the biggest things they're talking about is the collagen production. Is that right? In what you're
Yes.
seeing?
Definitely one
Yeah.
of the benefits. Yep.
Yeah. So again, if we tie that back to women and estrogen and breaking down collagen, which is your ligamentous injuries or your SI joint, which is a huge thing. We can talk about SI joint dysfunction in women all day because that's probably the biggest thing that I see
Mhm.
in this hormonal shift. But why not? Yeah. If you have a quality place and it's going to help stimulate collagen production and your body is actively trying to not have collagen, go for it.
Yeah. And for the SI joint and everything, because again, joint pain is another big one we see for all the hormonal changes we talked about in this season of life. And especially for that area, like in addition to the posture openers and the core strengthening exercises, I love things like lunges and squats because those are the biggest muscles in your body. So not only is it going to help your overall metabolism, but it will certainly help, I feel like, strengthen and stabilize that area as well to decrease that
Yeah.
risk.
Yeah, there's actually a lot. I agree with you. And squats and lunges are great because they're functional and they're co-contractors, right? Like you have to be able to stabilize a lot of different muscles at the same time. Um, when there's SI joint dysfunction, for people who don't know much about the SI joint, it's where your sacrum, the very bottom part of your spine, attaches to your pelvic bone, right? And it's fully ligamentous. I mean, it should have 3 to 5 millimeters of movement, and it's just like on either side, there's all these different ligaments. When you're pregnant, when your hormones change, that whole pelvic girdle, right, gets so out of whack, and it can shift and it can slip and it can rotate and it can spin and it does all of these crazy things because of all of those hormonal changes. Sometimes those lunges and squats, if you're slipped up, you're rotated, you're flared out, they may not be possible, right? Like it's such a big thing. And so but that's my job, right? And then we'll get the hormone part back. It's your job. And yeah, really be able to stabilize out that way. But it is just so common.
Yes. And it is, you want to hear something wild? When I was pregnant with my son the first time, I will never forget, I was grocery shopping like 7 o'clock at night with my husband. And I think I was like 7 or 8 months pregnant. This was truly when I realized how crazy influential hormones were on our ligaments and our whole musculoskeletal system. I was walking down, like picking out a shampoo, and I literally took a step and I looked at my husband and I'm like, my hip just popped out. Like I can't
Like
get my leg back. It was the weirdest sensation. And fast forward when I talked about it with my OBGYN and everything, and that's when they explained, it literally felt like my hip just like was dislocated. And I actually had to like manually like pop it back in. So hormones are crazy influential on
yes,
the
yeah,
entire system. So it's no wonder why we see an increase in all of these things, right? Like after 35.
absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. And
um,
especially now that, we're getting pregnant later. And so
yeah.
we've got that whole fact of which we didn't even talk about, right? Like not in our 20s, we're in our, mid to late 30s and our hormones are already doing this. And then we're adding pregnancy hormones in, we're adding the extra weight from pregnancy or from just different hormonal levels. That puts different stress on our joints. There's so many factors. That's crazy.
Yes, for sure. And then,
Yeah.
so as we wrap up, Kelly, can you, because again, all about prevention, right? And then when they do have an
Yep.
injury, definitely come see you virtually, which is such a fantastic option. But for the preventative piece, so everyone hears there's like an overwhelming information about core strengthening, right? And they're like, well, do I do sit-ups? Do I do planks? Do I do bicycles? Do the obliques? Like, do you have a couple of favorites that you either alternate or are consistent with that you feel like really help stabilize that core?
So, yes, and so the big misconception is the core of the stabilizers versus the core of the movers, right? So, the core movers are the back extensors and your abs and your obliques, right? Those are great to train. You need to train them, they need to be strong. There's also that deeper set of core muscles that hold your spine and pelvis in place, which are what I focus on when it comes to preventative stuff. And the biggest thing that I can tell you is when you're doing core exercises, stay in a spinal neutral position. Nothing super crunchy, nothing super extension-y going backwards. Because if you're already in a hormonal state and things are funky and we're putting these weird different stresses on our spine, you're opening yourself up to injury. If we can so planks, for example, planks are great. Core neutral, it gets the deep core. It also gets the back extensors. It also gets the core. And you could do variations of planks. You could do side planks. You could do planks with little like rotational movements. Those are all great. So my quick tip for if you want something preventative is don't do those heavy crunches. Do not do those crazy extensors because you might be throwing your spine into different positions that are not healthy for your back, depending on where you are.
This was all super enlightening and so helpful, Kelly. I could literally talk to you for hours.
For me too. No, for me too. It's so like, it's so refreshing to be able to talk to people who understand the holistic, because we get really caught up, doctors get really caught up in, you're here for your ear. We're looking at your ear. We're not looking at the whole other piece. So it's so refreshing. And it was such an enlightening conversation for me too, to learn about, really the effects of hormones from what you're seeing.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so, so much for your time. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you and contact you?
Yes. So there's a couple different ways. The easiest is probably Instagram. It's just Kelly Davis, Kelly Davis _DPT. Feel free to reach out and follow, and I'd be happy to help anyone.
Perfect. And I will put Kelly's information and contact information all in the episode notes so everyone can access you. So thank you so much, Kelly. And I hope
this was so great. Yeah.
Have a great rest of the week.
You too.
If you're ready to invest in yourself to become the healthiest and happiest version of you, head over to my website, thelifestylepa.org, to learn more about my 3-month lifestyle program, where I offer a very personalized, whole-body approach to optimize your health. In addition to your 1-hour initial consultation, we have 30-minute bi-weekly Zoom visits. You receive my 45-page lifestyle handbook, lab work interpretation, unlimited communication and support through a secure messaging platform, 3 months of meal plans tailored to your needs, and guidance on mastering the 6 pillars of lifelong health: nutrition, movement, sleep, stress management, positive psychology, and social connections. I can't wait to connect with you and help you to truly optimize your health once and for all.